If there is one consistent comment that players of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes make, it's that the ship's game mode is at times a chore, at others stagnant and boring. Others label the game mode as difficult and not worth the hassle, and in this video I wish to dispel this notion, giving a brief overview of the key fleets in the game right now and their strengths and weaknesses. Now, arguably the best starter fleet right now in the game, we'll start this video with Admiral Ackbar's Home 1, the Rebel fleet. For players just starting the game, Home 1 is a versatile ship that can work with a number of ships as well, notably Rebels but also Geonosians and on the odd occasion Galactic Republic as well. The strengths of the Home 1 fleet are in creating attacks at a turn, fueling Ackbar's crew ability Band Together. With this ability, attacks at a turn for your team grant an extra 50% critical damage and give your team 30% protection up for 2 turns, whilst these stats are doubled for Rebel allies. With a reinforcement ability that grants incoming allies advantage, guaranteeing they critically hit enemies on entry, this fleet has potential for massive damage. Now if you're just starting the game, early on you can run the fleet with Biggs Darklighter, Ghost and Phantom to have a core group of starting rebels that between them have the durability in Biggs, damage in Phantom and Ghost, and just that minor annoying factor in Phantom's ability to taunt with Foresight before going under stealth. Now while this fleet will not be the best fleets in the game right now, it is a good starting point whilst you work towards Han's Millennium Falcon. You can earn that by farming 4 bounty hunter ships to 5 stars and completing the event Flight of the Falcon. HMF is the glue to making the Rebel fleet capable of beating anything in the game right now. With dispels on basic, calls to assists on the basic as well, boost to crit chance, accuracy and, for Rebels allies only, critical damage, plus team cleanses whenever an ally suffers 3 or more debuffs. Han is absolutely fantastic. The cream in his kit, however, is the ability for Han to avoid being targeted whenever he has the buff Outmaneuver and allies on the battlefield. It means that enemies need to either eliminate Han's allies first before going for Han, or remove that buff from Han. So why isn't Home 1 the best fleet in the game? Well, first of all, some of, if not the majority of the ships in the fleet require pilots that are less than desirable. Ships gain their power from the pilots, if they have pilots anyway, and they draw power from the pilots' gear, relics, stars and mod levels. Admiral Ackbar does not have a purpose in the main part of the game, so unless you really want to build out your Rebel faction, there is little reason to take Ackbar to gear 11, 12 and beyond, other than to just boost his ship. The same goes for Biston, Scarab Rebel Pathfinder, Jin, Cassian, K2SO, Wedge Antilles, who are all demanding farms which have very little output in the main part of the game. Now thankfully, Mon Mothma's arrival in 2020 has made all of these characters have that little bit extra viability, thanks to the Rebel fighter tag. Yet considering she can only have 4 alongside her in a team, that still means there will be leftover characters from any potential Rebel ships farm. So you can make uses out of some of these characters, building a whole fleet from them is a big ask at times. One point to note, if you are going for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren as an endgame target, the Rebel fleet is not a bad starting point, due to needing the original 4 bounty hunter ships at 7 stars to complete the requirements for General Hux's Finalizer, whilst also giving you arguably one of the best ships in the game along the way. The next 2 ships I will discuss require Get 2, Guild Event Tokens Mark II to be precise. It is earned predominantly in Geonosis territory battles, although there are other avenues depending on the size of your guild, such as Hoth territory battles if you get to a certain amount of stars, or territory wars. Whilst farming the shards for either of these capital ships is arduous for new players, both are worth the time and investment. My first Get To farm was for General Grievous's Malevolence, a ship I had been working towards before its announcement back in late 2019. By that point I got my Geonosian pilots up to about 7 stars and have been using them under Grand Moff Tarkin's capital ship, Executrix. In hindsight, I regret this. At the time I liked using Executrix's reinforcement ability that grants retribution on incoming allies, but with further thought though, I believe Home 1 would have been a better fit in this regard due to what I have said already about it, how it boosts fleets that attack out of turn regularly, which is what Geonosians are fantastic at. I discuss all of this because if you are new to the game and you want Grievous to be your fleet commander in the long run, I do highly recommend Geonosians, even though they can be a bit slow to work with at the beginning. You'll need all 3 of the unique abilities on the ships to be maxed out to truly see the power of this fleet, as I realised when I was climbing from an average of about 100 in Fleet Arena to the top 20, just in the time it took me to max out those 3 abilities. Alone though, the bugs aren't enough. You will need both the Hyena Bomber and the Vulture Droid if you truly want to build the best Malevolence fleet, with the Hyena being one of the best ship tanks in the game, and the Vulture being crucial to making the Malevolence tick. Hyena's unique ability grants him the ability to ignore taunt effects, as well as granting itself plus 50% defense for each Separatist ally and plus 10% tenacity for each droid ally. As a counter to Rebel fleets, it also grants critical hit immunity to an ally for 2 turns if they are a Separatist and have been target locked. A debuff that Rebels land oh so easily. Under the Malevolence's command though, all Separatist allies have plus 50% critical avoidance as well, making this fleet incredibly hard to bulldoze through. Malevolence's key strength is using Vulture Droids and Buzz Droids. Now the Vulture Droid is farmable and should be placed in your Malevolence's starting lineup. Regardless of whether you do this or not though, whenever the Malevolence uses a special ability, it will summon a Vulture Droid to your team if there is a spot on the battlefield. Remember, there are only 5 spots available per team. Therefore, it means that you can theoretically finish battles without needing to use a reinforcement, just using Vulture Droids. Buzz Droids are applied by both the Hyena Bomber and Vulture Droids, and their effects, which include nerfing enemy defense and decreasing the health at the start of each enemy turn, they are tripled under Malevolence's command, making enemies that much easier to punch through. The main selling point of the Malevolence though is its ultimate, the Ion Cannon. After a 5-turn cooldown, it fires the Ion Cannon and removes all turn meter and protection from enemies, meaning tanks such as the ever-annoying Houndstooth are at your mercy. As for weaknesses, Malevolence is highly reliant on its core trio of Vulture, Hyena and Sunfac, meaning that if you take these ships out, the reinforcements, or summon Vulture Droids, will struggle to turn the tide of the battle on their own. Also, the fleet benefits from attacks at a turn, with all Vulture Droids attacking when they're targeting an enemy with Buzz Droids, which means if your fleet is dazed, your damage output will be drastically reduced. Finally, there is not a lot of versatility in this fleet. With the core 3 starters, you've got Geonosian Spy, who's considered a safe choice to reinforce in this fleet. But after that, you've got IG-2000, Han's Millennium Falcon, Houndstooth, Geonosian Soldier. All of these ships can be seen as reinforcements in this fleet, but none of them are considered must-haves as far as they will make or break the fleet. A lot of the time, you just need the core trio, which can be a positive and a negative depending on how you view it. The final get-to ship is the Negotiator, General Kenobi's command ship. Now, widely considered to be the best capital ship in the game due to its better defensive performances in Fleet Arena, as well as being great offensively, Negotiator is a great choice to invest in. Its strengths lie in its speed and its ability to daze opponents, a debuff that both Rebels and Separatists hate to see, controlling the battlefield and then swarming opposition teams. With a special, Mobilize, that inflicts daze for 2 turns on all enemies and then calls Galactic Republic allies to assist on a target enemy, this is a great opening move to wipe out a key enemy and start the battle strong. However, on the occasion that your fleet is slower and needs support itself, Republic Protection can grant Galactic Republic allies unending loyalty, meaning they cannot be defeated the first time an attack would defeat them, instead gaining stealth and recovering health and 50% protection up. The key ship in this fleet is Anakin's ETA-2 Starfighter, which under the command of the Negotiator gains unending loyalty for 3 turns, meaning even if you focus fire on Anakin straight away, he'll come back to hit you harder than before, especially if you hurt his allies. Another strength of the Galactic Republic fleet is that there is a lot of variety in ships that can start alongside Jedi Knight Anakin. The BTR Y-Wing is the best choice to tank, but sometimes Houndstooth can do a job. 5s can be a tanky presence with good damage, but Ahsoka Tano is good at countering Malevolence fleets. Plo's Jedi Starfighter is one of the best reinforcement abilities in the game, cleansing all debuffs from your team and recovering 40% health and protection, allowing you to get back into the fight if you're on your last legs. Even Clone Sergeant, a character you unlock on day 1 of playing the game as his uses by reinforcing and taunting as long as it has protection. So I suppose the question at this point is, why wouldn't you go for the Negotiator? First of all, the fleet is heavily dependent on Anakin's Starfighter. If it is wiped out early, the fleet will struggle to carry home the win on its own. Also, 5-star Negotiators are capable, but can struggle to beat 7-star Malevolences, whereas 5-star Malevolences can beat 7-star Negotiators. So if you want more bang for your buck earlier on, Negotiators can occasionally struggle. Finally, due to the variety of lineups you can field with a Negotiator, mirror matches can be a bit more difficult to learn and conquer than, say, a Malevolence or an at-bar mirror match, which are usually more simple to assess and or manage by comparison. Now, the 3 ships I've mentioned so far in the game are what I would recommend to new players to focus on in the mid to long term. However, there are more fleets that I'll briefly discuss here, and if there is an interest, I will start making dedicated videos on all these fleets, but in particular these ones. So, the Raddus. It's a great defensive fleet that packs an almighty punch when it pulls off the holdo manoeuvre. Before you reach its ultimate ability, the key is to use as many resistance ship specials as possible to hold on until holdo blows the opposition to pieces. As there is no tank in the resistance fleet, Houndstooth usually has a home there and starts to protect the other 2 resistance ships. This is a downside though, as sometimes Houndstooth is needed elsewhere as it's an in-demand ship, so soon enough holdo will need a tank of her own to really make the fleet shine, as the holdo manoeuvre is heavily reliant on resistance special abilities being used, and if they die off too quickly, it's game over. To contrast with the defense-minded Raddus, we have the offense-minded Finalizer. The only capital ship to date with an ultimate ability that starts off cooldown, placing the hunted debuff onto an enemy ship reduces their outer turn damage, meaning Hans Millennium Falcon and Houndstooth really struggle when the Finalizer has them in its sights. Again, the downside is that the fleet does not have a dedicated tank, so it needs to borrow ships from other factions to not such great effect. I mean, if you use the Finalizer, you need to deal your damage fast to stand a chance of claiming victory. Now, the final 3 ships that I'm going to cover, Endurance, Executrix and Chimaera. They all still have minor purposes in the game, however limited it may be at times. Endurance is a good capital ship early on if you plan to start farming your Galactic Republic ships and characters before you go for the Negotiator. It's certainly not capable of punching up to the heights of General Kenobi, but it can still give some ships a home until the time comes for them to graduate to the big leagues. Mace's strengths lie in defense, they buff tank allies, and you spread valor to make the fleet go as fast as possible. However, it will not survive for too long purely based on defense. Executrix and Chimaera have taken a bit of a strange turn in the last year, where once upon a time the legendary Chimaera was the more desired capital ship, but since Tarkin's Executrix has had a bit of a mini revival due to the TIE bomber arriving on the holotables in mid-2020, the durable tank has created an argument that both Executrix or Chimaera are now the best lead for an Empire faction fleet, with Darth Vader's TIE Vance spreading target locks, causing TIE Bomber to have almost a permanent taunt. With Executrix, there would be an extra turn meter and offense provided to the team, whilst Chimaera would provide survivability and bonus critical damage. Personally, I would lean more towards Executrix being the better capital ship, due to the turn meter gains, plus there is some good damage on the ultimate. However, anyone using Chimaera will still have an okay capital ship in this situation, so by no means I do not believe one is right and one is wrong. If you go for either, you've still got a good option with Empire fleets. So, as I've said, there is potential for a lot more discussion on fleets with this, but for this video alone I merely wanted to give an overview of strengths and weaknesses, and I wanted to help focus on why you should or should not farm a fleet if you haven't already. So please let me know in the comments if you have a question on a specific fleet that I've talked about here, if there is something that this video did not answer, and if there is a recurring theme in the comments, I will make a video addressing that theme. With that in mind, if you haven't already, hit the like button for this video and subscribe to the channel to be notified of future videos. JJ's Productions aims to cover multiple games at one time, so feel free not to hit the bell if you're here for just Galaxy of Heroes, but please hit the sub button, that way you will be notified eventually. We do have some fun on here, we do play Hitman 3, we've got Persona 5 streams, we've been doing Spider-Man streams, so there's plenty going on here. Hopefully there's some stuff that might catch your eye, if not this game. Please stick around for those. Other than that though, hopefully I'll see you soon. This has been Josh from JJ's Productions. Bye for now, folks.